Hi everybody, it's time for story time. Graham Cracker is here to hear the next book. He loves story time. The book today is called Nothing to Do by Douglas Wood. And while I'm reading it, I want you to see if you notice anything. So the author and illustrator worked together. They used 8 patterns that repeat in nature. The patterns are explosion, meandering, branching, alternation, spirals, helix, close packing, and spherical. A lot of big words, but just see if you notice some of these shapes in the story, and then I'll talk about it after a little bit. Once in a while, along comes a day when there is nothing, absolutely positively nothing to do. And isn't that great? No school, no homework, no Little League, no dance class, no play rehearsal, no soccer practice, no computer camp, no anything. Just a white empty space on the calendar. Of course, some people get a little bit worried about those spaces. These people are very nice and wear bigger shoes, but we'll think about them a little later. But what do you do when there's nothing to do? Well, I have heard stories, wonderful stories about taking off your shoes and walking through the green grass or mud in your bare feet, or making toy ships out of sticks and sailing them across a puddle that somehow seems as wide as the ocean. There's a lot to see on these pages, so I am going to pause for a bit so you can look at all the pictures. I've heard about lying on your back and watching the clouds turn from dinosaurs into crocodiles, into dragons, into bears, into butterflies, into clouds. Or lying on your stomach and watching an ant carry something 3 times bigger than he is, while you wonder, how can he do that? And what do ants eat for breakfast that makes them so strong? I've heard of making a paper airplane, do loop-de-loops and barrel rolls in the soft summer air, and then land smooth as butter on bread. Or building a fort, a secret place where no one can see you because you can't see them. And surviving for hours on peanut butter sandwiches and lemonade. I've heard about catching fireflies on a warm evening and putting them in a jar until you have 2 hands full of gold and then letting them all go. I've heard of swinging until your toes touch the clouds, or hanging by your knees like a monkey, just to find out how monkeys feel. I've heard of climbing a good tree that's been waiting all its long life just to be climbed by you. Or finding a quiet spot and reading your very favorite book, and then reading it again. There's a lot to look at on this page. Just because it is your favorite. I've heard stories about exploring places that really need to be explored. And making angels in the snow, or igloos, or caves, or sledding, or tasting icicles, or throwing snowballs, or building round fat men with orange noses and old hats who smile at everyone. Why, I've heard of swimming and building sandcastles and hopscotching and jump roping and running and throwing and bouncing and painting and drawing and playing with toys and puzzles and dolls and games and puppies and kittens and hamsters and gerbils and doing cartwheels and doing somersaults and doing... Well, sometimes just doing nothing. And maybe one of the best ways to do nothing is to show someone else how to do it. Maybe even someone with big shoes. Just to remind them that sometimes doing nothing is the most important thing in the whole wide world to do. So I was inspired by this book, and I wanted to see if I could find some of those patterns out in nature. And when I start to look, I can see them everywhere, especially the spiral or the branch. Remember the shapes? I hope you saw some of them in the book. I think it's really cool. And if you go out in nature, see if you can find some of these 8 shapes that reoccur in nature all the time. I've wanted to read this book for a while to you. I remember some of my happiest memories in my childhood was when there was unscheduled and unplanned time. Time I had to myself, just to be myself, to daydream and explore and think up things to do with my friends or even just by myself on my own. And sometimes just to be bored and let life go along at its own unhurried speed. So I can relate to this book because the world sometimes moves at a faster pace. And I think grown-ups and kids need unscheduled time to relax, to imagine, to figure out who we are and how the world works. And kids and grown-ups need time to do nothing. So people with little shoes and people with big shoes can enjoy this book. Thanks for spending some time with me today. See you soon. Bye-bye.